Hey there, welcome back to Pepper Geek. In today's video, I'll be dehydrating peppers. Now, dehydrating your peppers is one of the great and easy ways to preserve your peppers for the long term. If you have a larger harvest than you were expecting, you can dehydrate your peppers. We'll be using our purpose-built dehydrator, but you don't need one. You can use an oven or even a toaster oven. And if you're using peppers that have a very thin wall, you can even get away with air drying them. So through the course of this video, I'll show you how we dehydrate our peppers and the various things you can do with them once they're dry. Before I get started, check out Geeky Greenhouse. Our first video is live over there. Our new channel is all about general gardening, growing other vegetables other than peppers, making raised beds, making compost, everything you can think of that is not pepper related in the garden. That's the channel where we're gonna post that sort of content. So if you're interested, please check it out and subscribe, and we'll see you there. So back to dehydration. We do this every single year. It's always one of the methods that we use to preserve our harvests, and it's just so versatile. You know, you can dehydrate your peppers and make them into powder. You can then use that in your cooking, or you can dehydrate your peppers whole or in half and then store them for the long term, rehydrate them later, and then use them in your cooking or whatever you might need them for. And they'll keep for a very long time if you dehydrate them quickly after picking and you do it properly. So today I'm gonna do two batches. I have on my left side here some annuum type peppers. These are some serranos and the Peter peppers, which are basically jalapeno flavor type peppers with some heat. And then I also have some cayenne type peppers. These aren't actually cayennes, but they are just sort of a Thai chili, small hot red pepper. So that's gonna be one batch. We're gonna keep those separate from our other batch of hotter peppers. These are cayenne peppers, and I've just kind of grouped together a batch of different varieties. We have some yellow peppers, a little bit orange, and these purple make up the majority because we had a lot of those ripe. So I'll be making that into a powder, and at the end of this video, I'm gonna make my very own spicy chip challenge and have a homemade flour tortilla chip with this on it and some other spices. So now, like I said, you really don't need a dehydrator. If you have an oven, especially a convection oven that circulates the air, that will work very well. But even a basic oven that doesn't circulate air will work. It'll just take a lot longer. The only issue with using the oven, besides that it might take longer, is that the temperature can't go as low as it should for dehydration. So ideally, we're shooting for a temperature around 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The lowest setting on your oven might only go down to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's just gonna cause the peppers to cook while they're dehydrating, which is fine, but it can take away some flavor and definitely some color from the peppers. I'll show you the difference in color from this versus some store-bought cayenne pepper. It's a world of difference in color and, I think, flavor. Dehydrators are purpose-built. They have these mesh trays that allow air to circulate above and below whatever it is you're dehydrating. It also sets the temperature very low. You can go as low as 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius with this machine. And this has a fan that circulates the air constantly in the chamber inside of here, so you know you're getting a very even dehydration. You don't really have to flip anything, you don't have to turn the trays or anything like that. They tend to just dehydrate evenly no matter what. So the process is gonna look like this. I'm gonna cut these peppers in half, remove the seeds, place them on the trays skin side down, and then set the temperature to about 125, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and leave that on for as long as it takes. Most of these peppers are pretty thin-walled. These cayenne types have very thin walls. They'll dehydrate pretty quickly. These serranos are a little bit thicker, but I think they're gonna go pretty quick. Depending on what you're dehydrating, if you're dehydrating jalapenos or even bell peppers, you could do that, but it'll take a lot longer. It might take 12 all the way up to 24 hours, depending on how fresh the peppers are and how thick the walls are. Okay, so with that, let's get cutting. Always use gloves no matter how spicy the peppers are, even if you're just using like a mild jalapeno. I like to wear gloves because I've gone through the experience of jalapeno hands too many times. But even when you're wearing gloves, you can touch your face, so be careful not to touch your face or your eyes. All right, so I'll start with the milder batch and then work to the hotter batch. So I just like to remove the stems or cut them off. And then I'm just gonna slice lengthwise so I can remove the seeds more easily, and I'll just be putting the seeds into this little dish here, and then we'll dehydrate the peppers without the seeds. The reason I like to remove seeds is that they don't really grind very well, and you can take this opportunity to save the seeds to grow the plants next year if you wish. So I like to get them all cut first. One of the easiest ways to remove seeds from circular peppers like this is just to use a spoon and sort of work your way toward the stem end of the pepper. And that should bring the placenta and all the seeds out in one fell swoop. Then what you're left with is just sort of an open shell without any seeds. You just have a nice skin, and that's what you really want for dehydrating. If you want to save the seeds in there, it's totally fine. If you want more of a pepper flake and you're going for that sort of thing, leave the seeds in, make it a lot easier, and you'll definitely save some time. But I like to take them out and get a really smooth, powdery consistency. Especially if you're grinding the peppers, it just comes out better in my opinion. Okay, so I've completed the annuum side. Those little cayenne type peppers, those bird peppers, they are packed with seeds. So if you are gonna use something like that, just take your time. I found it to be a lot easier just to use your thumb and your nail to kind of scrape the seeds out. So now I'm gonna do the super hot side. These are cayenne peppers. Again, just cutting off the stem, cutting it lengthwise, and then you have the seeds right there. Just be really careful if you have long nails or sharp nails. They might poke through the gloves, and capsaicin does not discriminate. Wherever it gets on you, it'll be happy to burn. If you've never grown cayenne peppers, they're like habaneros, ghost peppers. I'm just cutting these, and the aroma in this room is just amazing. It smells so much different than the annuum type peppers, which is why I'm keeping them separate. It's basically an entirely different spice. Another tip is to begin this process early in the morning because, like I said, it can take a long time, even with a dehydrator, to get your peppers to the right state of dehydration. So if you start early in the morning, you might be able to finish before the end of the day. Otherwise, you're looking at waiting until the next morning until your peppers are done. And at that point, they might be over dehydrated, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So let's talk about it right now. How long should you dehydrate your peppers? Well, it depends on the texture you're going for. If you're just planning to save your peppers and keep them in a jar and then rehydrate them later and throw them into your cooking, well then you can leave a little bit of pliability in the peppers. I prefer to leave just enough so that it has sort of a leathery texture to it. That's what they call it. You can still bend the peppers without it breaking, and that's perfect for use in cooking if you're fermenting and you want to add some flavor to your ferment. But today we're going to be turning these into powder. And so the texture I'm going for is completely brittle. We want the peppers to basically just shatter into tiny pieces, and dehydrating them all the way through to where they crack when you try to bend them. That's what I'm going for today, so that I get a really nice fine powder. Now all that's left to do is begin dehydrating. Your goal is essentially to get the peppers into a single layer on each of the trays so that there's even drying throughout. Okay, so that's it. The peppers are in here. I'm turning this on at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. The higher you go with temperature, the quicker it'll dehydrate, but I find that at 125, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, you preserve that color and it dehydrates fast enough for my needs. Now at this point, I'm gonna take off these gloves, and I would highly recommend you wash your hands a few times with dish soap if you've been handling hot peppers. Even if you're wearing gloves, it's better to be safe than sorry. And so I'll check back in a few hours and show you the progress from where they are now, and hopefully catch some of the peppers while they're still a little bit pliable. Okay, so it's a new day and new shirt, and we're finally ready. The peppers dehydrated for about 13 hours at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I said, they are fully dehydrated at this point. They crack in half when you try to bend them. So all that's really left to do to make the powder is to put the peppers through a grinding process. This is my coffee grinder. My coffee's gonna be a little bit spicy over the next couple of days, I suspect, but that's okay. But I am gonna do this outside because I've learned my lesson in the past. If you're gonna be grinding peppers or even cooking peppers that are hotter than a jalapeno, I recommend you find a way to do it outdoors. You'll definitely save yourself from a coughing fit. So again, I'll start grinding the less spicy peppers. Just gonna grind them until they're a fine powder. There may be a few seeds left over, but I've tried to knock off as many as I could before putting them into the coffee grinder. And now for the super hots, I'm definitely gonna stand back for this one and try to hold my breath while these grind. And if you are grinding really hot peppers, I recommend that you let it sit for a little while after you stop grinding before you open up the top. Again, you don't want a cloud of this stuff blooming into your kitchen. Okay, so that's it. We have our two powders, one hot and one hotter. They're very dangerous, so I really recommend you keep them closed at all times. And just look at the color difference between store-bought cayenne powder and the cayenne powder we just made today with our freshly grown peppers. It's just a world of difference. So these will stay good for a very long time if you just keep them in the cupboard. I recommend keeping them in a dark, cool place like your pantry. We just like to use small plastic reusable containers, but you could also just reuse your old cayenne powder. Okay, so now as promised, I'm gonna make super spicy chips. I have these 2 flour tortillas. I'm going to dance a little olive oil onto them, paint it around. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut these into wedge shapes, kind of like cutting a pizza, like that. And then I have a little bit of a spice blend here. This is just some cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, and some sea salt. This is just to test out our powder. And now, of course, last but not least, our freshly made super hot powder. Just gonna use a small, well, maybe that much. Probably about a teaspoon. It's really a nice looking little spice blend. And then I'm just gonna coat these like that. Okay, so we've got our chips coated in the seasoning. They should be very spicy. And I'm just gonna preheat the oven to 350. Okay, so the homemade chips are done. They smell really fiery. I can't wait to taste one. So let's give it a try. Not a bad flavor actually for just whipping that together. I think I could go hotter.
What you making?
These are hot chips, or just chips.
What kind of peppers did you use on these?
Just bell peppers.
Oh, sure. All right. Oh, good. Did you put salt in there too?
I did.
They're hot.
They need like salsa, but
They need more spice.
they're pretty good actually, right?
Yeah, they're good.
I did good.
Really hot.
It builds too.
What
Yeah.
kind of peppers are on these?
Just a ghost pepper, basically. Just a really hot pepper.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's a secret milk.
There's
yeah, I'm
always a
eating
secret
too.
milk. Nice.
Thanks, Crystalline. Okay, so there we have it. That's how you dehydrate peppers and make pepper powder. It's a great way to preserve your peppers, but there's also so many uses for it, not just making homemade chips, but you can add it to your soups, your stews, any of your homemade meals that you want to make spicier without changing the flavor too much. Powder is just such a great way to do that. Don't forget to check out Geeky Greenhouse, our new YouTube channel. It's where we're going to do all of our gardening that is not pepper related. So if you're interested in tomatoes and growing other vegetables, check out our second channel in the first link in the description below. So I hope you'll try this. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time on Pepper Geek.